Welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, where today we will be discussing the article Being a True and Upright Mason by Midnight Freemasons founder Todd E. Creason.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions via our website at theworkingtoolspodcast.com.
Today on the Working Tools Podcast, we have our usual host of erudite, learned Masons, led by the ever knowledgeable worshipful brother Stephen Chung from Prince Charles Lodge, number 153 in British Columbia. Worshipful brother Jarrod Dunham from Penticton 147, also up in British Columbia. Very worshipful brother David Colbeth from King Solomon number 60 down here in Washington. And I'm Matt Appel, and I'm a member of Mill Creek Lodge number 243, and we meet in Montlake Terrace, Washington. So today, as we almost wrap up our conversation on different articles, I think if this isn't the last one, it'll be the next to last one. It was my turn, and so I chose this article from the Midnight Freemasons. It's from the archives, Being a True and Upright Mason. I'm guessing it was published before. It was originally published in 2013. And yeah, so I'm not sure when it was republished, but anyway, I found it. It seemed interesting to me, and it takes a little while to get to the meat of it, but it begins talking about the how the idea of karma and things going around and coming around is kind of universal in some ways, and that it applies in Masonry, and what am I trying to say? That it applies in Masonry, and that the work that we put into Masonry or lack thereof will come around to us in our Masonic labors. I think that kind of summarizes the article. Does anyone have any? Help me out here. Dig me out of this hole.
I would agree, Matt. I think that's the premise of it. He titles it in the beginning, to every action there's an equal or opposite reaction. As he's talking about Newton's third law. And so, I would agree in general. I mean, we've talked about it before, that we are, and this is going to get a little deep, a little faster, but we are energetic beings ultimately. And so for everything we do, that there's going to be some kind of opposite reaction, some kind of reaction. And the idea of the law of attraction, we've ever seen the movie The Secret. Have you guys seen that movie? It's pretty good. It's a little, it could be a little bit corny at times, but it's basically the foundation of the law of attraction. What you believe and conceive, you can achieve, and what you put out comes back to you. And that's basically the idea. But Jarrod's shaking his head. He doesn't like that idea.
Hogwash! No, test it out, man. Test it with the parking theory. Everywhere I go, I get rock star parking. Why? Because I apply the law of attraction and I get that rock star parking spot every single time. Everybody's always amazed at that, but they love to get in the car with me and go carpooling to Lodge because they know they're going to get rock star parking.
No, as Colonel Potter would always say, horse puckies.
Well, when you're 2 hours early to Lodge, of course you're going to get a great spot.
Yeah, not never 2 hours early, that's for sure. But Jarrod, why do you oppose the theory of this when it is proven to be true so many times over? What
Not
you get out of it,
scientifically proven. It is apocryphal. It is you with a positive attitude, looking at everything from a very positive way. There's no scientific proof whatsoever. Although I'm not discounting it. It works for people. I'm just saying that the universe does not give a rat's fart about us.
But do you agree that you get out of Freemasonry what you put into it?
Nope. I hate that line with a passion. You don't get out of it what you put into it. The line should be, if you do the work, you will see results.
And on that note, thank you for listening to the work details.
You can contact me at, grumpyoldpastmaster.
So the line. So for those who haven't read the article yet, it uses the trite saying of you get out of masonry what you put into it, which I know I've heard 1,000 times, and I've probably honestly have said once or twice. But it's in the patented Appel fashion. It's one of those things that I have different feelings about. It's there's the practice and there's the reality of it. And I was actually listening to another podcast that talked about this not too long ago. The Fort Worth 148 Lodge has a podcast, and there's an episode from back in, I forget when, 2019 or something, that was talking. They were talking about this briefly, and there's a part of me that says that that they compare it to on this podcast, and I agree that it's not masonry is not a vending machine. If you put your change in, you don't expect to get the candy bar kind of thing. It's not a transactional thing like that. But on the other hand, I mean, this is me now, if you never show up to anything and you never do anything, then you can't expect much out of it either, right?
But okay, yes, I agree with that. The problem with the saying I always have is that it assumes that every input is equal. That all you have to do is put something into it and you will get something out of it. And I don't, and as you said, it's not transactional. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio. If I show up, I know what the saying is trying to say, but I think it would be better if we just said, if you did the work, you get results. I know it doesn't sound as nice, but it's more accurate.
And I would agree. I don't think it's meant to be transactional. Matt's idea of the candy bar and the money, and that's a true transaction where I'm going to spend this and I'm going to get this back. And that's not it. I looked up Newton's law of attraction just to get some more. I thought there must be some people that have done some other studies on this. And from a pure scientific spot, it's a force of result from interaction. So instead of being a transaction, we can look at it as an interaction. So while I would agree that specifically you're shouldn't expect to get something out of it from what you put into it. However, through that interaction with other Masons, with your own reading, with your own heart, as he talks about, looking at, I guess maybe that's the second article. He talks about, I'm giving little clues away, but the idea of the interactions between the Masons and what you read and the contemplation that you do, those you should expect something from that. And if you don't, then you might wonder what interactions are you having? What books are you reading? What guys you're hanging around with? Those kind of things. So there is a level of, I should expect something. Otherwise, why am I doing this?
No. Well, okay. But the problem is that, okay, too often we look at things in that way, is that, well, I'm doing all this work, why is nothing happening? But it's your perception of maybe you aren't actually noticing what's happening. Like if you put, like, as you said, if you put in the work, if you do the readings, you may not see a difference. Others may see a difference in you. And
right, but the difference is still there.
I know, but it's perception. What you're asking about, what the problem that I have with this is the expectation that you're going to see a difference.
Well,
yeah,
there's likely going to be some difference, though.
Sorry.
No, that's the whole process of it, though, right? Isn't it? That
it is. There is a difference, but it's whether you may not notice it. It may be so gradual, and that you just have become better without really. It may. I guess what I'm saying is, it may take someone else pointing it out to you.
That's possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's where those interactions
too often, if we don't see it right away, like too often, if you don't see it right away, you don't think it's happening.
Hence why we have an attrition rate.
The saying you get out of it what you put into it is that it's takes away other people's interaction with you. Like it's putting all the onus on you. And it's requiring, if you don't see a difference, then there's no difference happening when everyone around you may be seeing the difference. And if they don't say anything to you, you don't notice it. I know I'm really not making as much sense as it did in my mind when I was thinking it. But you see what I mean? Is that we shouldn't always expect to see something that maybe we aren't able to see ourselves.
Are we back to the tyranny of the perfect bachelor?
Sorry?
Are we back to the tyranny of the perfect bachelor article?
Yes, we are. We are actually back to the tyranny of the perfect bachelor.
I don't think that you have to see it yourself, though. I think that it's okay that others might see it in you, and it shouldn't be. Again, I think you're back to that transactional idea. If you're expecting to see a difference, I think I'm contradicting to myself now, because I said earlier that I expect to see a difference. I do expect to see a difference. It may be subtle, or it may be something I'm working on to get towards. And that's where I think idea of goals and things that you want to work towards, and whether it's ritual or whether it's just understanding or things like the show. 10 years ago, 14 years ago, when we got into Masonry, I never thought we'd be doing this for 3 years. And so can we see a logical path and growth in this show for us as Masons? Maybe, but it's certainly fun to have someone point it out sometimes. Hey, we really like that show, or we like that topic, or whatever. I would have not necessarily dug into Newton's third law and done any research on that before in my interactions with Masonry. But I did that tonight in anticipation of this. So there is that interaction and that give and take to develop yourself. What do I see that? I don't know. Maybe. Hopefully somebody else does.
But you're being realistic about your expectations.
Well, isn't that part of our own personal growth, though?
It is, but as I'm saying, is that for most people, until they've actually gone through and done some of the work, their expectations are unrealistic. And that's why I dislike that. That's my main reason for I dislike that line, is because it is trite and it doesn't take into account the amount of work you're going to have to put in.
Well, granted, I did underline it and put the word cliche with a question mark next to it.
Yeah.
But the idea is that if I don't, for the first 10 years of Masonry, did I put effort? Yeah, I did some memorization, I did some officer work, I did those kind of things. But I admittedly have said many times that I'm not necessarily the most learned Mason. I don't, my morals and dogma sits dusty on my shelf. But the idea of wanting to learn and being forced essentially to learn because of the show and because of other reasons, I get it out of it what I put into it. I put the time in, I put the effort in, I get more information out of it, I get more knowledge and more experience out of it, and I can share it.
But if you were to put slightly less effort, my question is what you're getting out of it contingent on, like, if you were to do slightly less or slightly more, would you get slightly less or slightly more out of it?
I think
would it be a significant difference?
There's theories around that too, right? If you just put,
I didn't ask for a theory. I asked you for an opinion.
I think the difference would be relative to the effort, or that you're referring to, or the lack thereof, the volume of effort.
Is it?
I would agree with that
so.
in that, but also I'm going to say there are theories and proof. There's not necessarily myself, but there is proof that just doing a little more effort usually will provide exponential result. The difference between the top percentage and the almost top percentage is usually just a small change or a small additional. So yeah, I think by not doing anything, I think it's significant, of course. And then by doing a little bit, it's better than nothing. But just if you did a little bit more, your personal development or whatever growth you want to, whatever that is, whether it's Masonry or something else, it would have exponential growth and understanding and development. Again, assuming that the student is ready, assuming the mind is fertile and prepared and ready for it, all those, there's lots of variables in there, but.
Sorry. Oops. Yeah. I'm just here to stir things up.
That's good.
Well, no, because there have been studies that show that the amount of effort you put in, there is diminishing return on your effort.
Depending on what you're talking about, though.
No, there's every study that's ever been done on it has been put in that there is diminishing return on your efforts. That you get to a certain point where putting in more work doesn't necessarily give you more return.
I suppose at some point, yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's basic laws of
it's the law of diminishing returns. I mean, but okay, so
that doesn't work that way in finance.
We've all heard that, in order to master something, it's 10,000 hours. Give it. So at 9,999, you haven't mastered it. That's what I'm saying. At 9,998, 9,990. So that's why I'm saying is that
not if they say it takes 10,000 to master it.
But does it?
I think that's a theory, right? Again, it's an idea.
That's an
idea. It's not an
assumption. That's just a round number that Malcolm Gladwell came out. I think it was Malcolm Gladwell that came up with it or wrote the book on it. I can't remember.
You're right.
Macklemore song. It's a Macklemore song. I don't know if that gets us anywhere. So I think I agree with everything both sides have said. So I'm vacillating at a high rate of speed here. But so one of the things that I've heard someone say, and I honestly don't remember who it was at this point, it was a while ago, was that when it comes to masonry and masons, what the lodge puts into a mason, the more, something along the lines of, I don't remember the exact wording, the more the lodge puts into a mason, the more the lodge will get out of the mason. Not that we're trying to extract value from a mason, but
yes, we are.
We need the pyramid scheme to keep going. No. So if you provide a new brother with a quality degree, and you provide your lodge with a quality experience, and etc., that by feeding this quality into our brothers, that in turn, eventually, we will expect these brothers to be, not that we're expecting or demanding things out of them, but those brothers will stick around and they will learn things and they will become better men and better brothers. Has anyone thought about it from that perspective? Am I full of hooey?
Again, I think it goes back to those interactions, whether it's the lodge. What is the lodge, right? The lodge is a group of men. So the more interactions you have, then yes, you're going to have hopefully better results. If a lodge, the group of men gets together and says, hey, we want to do X, and we're going to do A and B and C to get X, whether that's, if I go back to the idea of the path forward we talked about before, we're integrity and compassion and becoming a better man, having these real ongoing experiences, and be devout in what we're doing as Masons and as a lodge, then yes, we should expect better interactions with each other and with new men, and we'll fulfill their goals and desires of becoming better men, and hopefully we will become better men in the result. I would hope. Hope's not a plan, though.
Hope it certainly isn't something else. Anyway, so the part of me that says that we should, so if you're a brother and you walk into my lodge, I should welcome you with open arms and be willing to drive out to help you change your tire in the middle of the night, or whatever it is. Every brother should be, no matter how much work they put in or how much effort they put into masonry or into being a good brother to me, that I should be putting myself out there and be valuing each of those brothers equally. And then there's another part of me that says, but Frank over there's a real jerk, and I don't want to have to deal with that jerk. And so at what point am I not living up to that half of the equation?
When you think he's a real jerk. Okay. Well, reading through this article, I had because they talk about good character. Now, the definition of character is mental and moral qualities. And the problem I have is we're always focusing on the moral qualities and not enough time spent on the mental qualities. So, and I've mentioned this before, that charity isn't just giving of something. So in your example there, Monsieur Appel, when you find yourself sitting there thinking, oh, Frank's a real jerk, maybe you just need to work on the charitable of, Frank and I don't get along and that's okay. Which is saying the same thing, but being more charitable in your opinion of him.
Or figuring out what it is about Frank that rubs you wrong.
Oh, he may just be a real total jerk, and that's quite fine. I've met Frank. He's a jerk. But it's your mental attitude towards Frank that is more important than whether or not you can find yourself find a way for you to get along with Frank other than just tolerating his presence on this planet.
Which would be a self-improvement, right? So that interaction with Frank, he's got that negative, you get that positive, there's an interaction there.
Yeah. But once again, it's a mental.
What you put into it is what you get.
He hasn't put anything into it. But it's an intangible. You can't measure whether he's a better person simply because of the way he thinks about someone else. How do you measure that? How does he measure that? And should he be measuring that, or should he just be happy that I no longer look at Frank and want to rip his guts out? I can actually tolerate just his presence, knowing that we'll never get along, and that's okay.
That was our minister at church one time was preaching on the loving one another thing, and he pointed out that Jesus didn't say tolerate one another. If you kissed your wife at night before you went to bed and said, I tolerate you, it's a very different meaning than if you tell her that you love her. It's a very different thing. And yeah, I know for me it's hard. Maybe hopefully I'm the only one in this group, but it is hard sometimes to love another as much as I want to be loving of another. And no, I agree. The charity work within is
okay. Yeah. Another point that I came up
change is very hard.
Sorry. Another problem with it, at least with this, is the dichotomies. Love and hate. You either have to love or not love. Why can't there be a middle ground? Like, why do we have, good or bad? Well, can we just not have me? Is that not either support or you don't support? Well, I don't actively not support you. Don't actively support you. I'm just kind of me. Like, why do we always have to go with one or the other? And I think that's one of the things that the tolerance that's taught in Freemasonry, I think that's something we don't focus on enough, is that it's not an and or, it's not an if or if or. Oh crap. There's a logic in computing that's, if this, then that.
If then, yeah.
Why do we always have to have the one or the other?
Well, I mean, in the Address of the Brethren, it says, it refers to disinterested friendships, right? Well, you don't. That's the same thing there. You don't always have the same desire to go to the lodge and hang out with, Frank as you do with David, right? Because you've got that relationship. You've put more effort into that connection with David than you have with Frank, right? And Frank just doesn't do it for you, right?
I would just like to say to all the Franks out there, we don't really dislike you. It just happened to be the first name that Matt used.
There is a Frank in my lodge, I will say, but I've never met the guy. He's probably delightful.
Well, I also had written down, we talked a couple of shows ago about balloting, and what about the bad seeds? It can go in the opposite direction. And we talk about a lot of positive things. We're trying to improve ourselves and try to improve the lodge. What if you get somebody? Okay, Frank, you're it. What if we get a Frank in the lodge and he's just driving things into the ground, and now he wants to join your lodge, or he's already in your lodge and there's the bad seeds? How do you handle? Maybe that's a lead into another episode here. How do you handle the bad seeds and the negative interactions, and the negative, what you put into is what you get out of it?
Maybe just try to feed him a whole bunch of positive. Try and change the outcome.
Or be charitable and look at it from his point of view to find out why he is negative. Because maybe he does have a point and you just haven't seen it.
Yeah, Jarrod. For those listening, Jarrod stuck his tongue out at me. We're going to use Jarrod as name and then in vain on the next show.
It's entirely possible that that's the case, right? But in general terms, I think I would agree with the majority of this, the focus of this paper. Being charitable, being willing to give a helping hand where you can without the expectation of reward, right? When you do things like that, I believe it comes back to you. I think that, giving selflessly like that, it has to have that positive rebound effect, right? To what extent that you get it back, well, that could be another challenge, because maybe not everybody's willing to give as freely as you are. Yes, Jarrod?
Well, except that you just said that you're giving in the anticipation that you're going to get.
No.
You did. You said if you give,
with no
something good will happen to you. You should just do good.
No expectation of reward.
But you said that something good will happen to you. And that's what I'm just talking about. Frame of mind is that, and that's, once again, that's a very hard frame of mind to get out of. Is that because we're transactional beings. It's embedded in our DNA, and that's something. Maybe that's more what the article is about, is the fact that we need to see the charity that we give, whether physical or just being charitable in our thoughts to others, and just be that way. No expectation, no nothing, just do it. Just be good.
Yeah.
And I now step off my soapbox.
That's a good thing, because we're almost out of time. It does say, one of the sentences that I liked in the article was, and any Mason will tell you that one of the most difficult undertakings you'll ever experience is being able to look at yourself in the mirror honestly and accepting the fact that you need a lot of work. I mean, I don't need a lot of work. I just need a little work, but maybe a little touch up here.
Yeah, little nip, little tuck.
So with that, we've about run out to the end of our time for this episode. I want to thank you all for listening to the Working Tools podcast. As Jarrod pointed out, I wish to re-apologize to all the Franks out there who we have inadvertently badmouthed. And I want to encourage you all to comment and let us know the names of the guys in your lodge that you don't like in the comments on our various social media presences. And with that, on behalf of Stephen and Jarrod and David and myself, thank you all for listening to the Working Tools podcast. Goodbye.